The regular session of the Hemet City Council meeting. Sarah, can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Kripa?
Here.
Councilmember Wright? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Meyer?
Here.
Mayor Christensen?
Here. If you could, please stand with me for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilmember Wright. And after the Pledge of Allegiance, if you could remain standing for a short moment of silence in remembrance of what happened 17 years ago.
Father, again this day we thank you so much for your goodness, your mercy, your great grace, Lord. We thank you, Lord, for these that are assembled here from the public, and we thank you for those that, Lord, are giving of their time to provide direction for us here in the Hemet area. We ask, Lord, that you would grant to us wisdom, knowledge, and insight in the mighty name of Jesus, Lord. We can't do any of this without you, so we yield to you, Father. We can always disagree without being disagreeable, because your word has told us to seek wisdom in everything that we do, get an understanding. And so we thank you for that tonight, Lord. We pray your choice blessings over these men and women who serve us in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in paying our respects to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I would like to thank Ricky Moore from the Hemet Sino Interfaith Council for our invocation. Thank you. Up next, closed session report, Mr. City Attorney.
Mayor, the City Council did discuss the two items that are on its agenda for closed session: public employee evaluation and conference with labor negotiators. The council did not take final action or finish either of those. Those will both be held over and continued to the end of your regular meeting this evening.
Thank you. All right, up next is the consent calendar. Takes a motion and one vote. These are items usually general in nature. Are there any members of the public who wishes to pull anything? Any staff wish to pull anything? Any council wish to pull anything? Well, that's a first. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you. Please vote. All right. We're moving along. Up next, communication from the public. Anybody who wishes to address the council regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. Sarah, do you have anybody that wishes to speak?
I do. Marie McDonald will be your first speaker, and she'll have 6 minutes, followed by Tammy Radomski.
Marie, good evening.
Mr. Mayor, Council, City Manager, City Attorney. Residents of Hemet have repeatedly expressed their concern, their opposition to the proposed median by Caltrans to be constructed for the full length of Florida Avenue. We have not seen any evidence behind Caltrans' claims that the median will decrease traffic accidents along Florida Avenue. In fact, we believe that the proposed median will actually increase traffic accidents. Requests for information from the City Council on this subject have been met only with "we're working on it," without details on any further information on the progress of our opposition to this construction. And I understand Chad May's office has not had any communication or request for working on this. In addition to our concerns on whether this project would increase rather than decrease traffic safety, we are also very concerned about the welfare of Hemet business owners who are located along Florida Avenue. The construction potentially could put a number of small businesses in Florida on Florida at risk. Why hasn't the city council investigated every available avenue that could be used to protect the citizens as well as the businesses of Hemet against this unwanted construction? Hemet is not overflowing with new business applications. If we lose some of these businesses on Florida because of the median construction, what will that do to our economic well-being, to Hemet's economic future? Isn't there some way in which Hemet could require Caltrans to substantiate their claims of increasing safety? Has the city of Hemet taken any steps to further involve Chad Mays in this problem? Didn't he understand and support Hemet's concerns at the meeting in Sacramento some months ago? Please, can't we have some answers to the above questions? That's subject number one. Subject number two. Why has the council not begun to address where the funds are coming from that could be used to balance next year's budget? It's not too early to begin consideration. We're concerned if the council doesn't address that early enough that there will be pressure to use Measure U funds next year to balance that budget, which we don't want, and the city absolutely does not want. The city's citizens who elected you do not want you to do that. So what are you going to do? How are you going to balance the budget? What steps are you taking now to ensure that we will have a balanced budget next year without having to consider using Measure U funds? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marie.
Great.
Steve?
Good evening. I'm back again, and I'm going to talk about some more ways to bring some income to the city, because it's not just cutting the expenses, it's also bringing in income to the city. That's important and is going to get us out of this hole. So what my idea is, when I first moved to Hemet, besides finding out that it is definitely the city of right-hand turns, I felt I was a backwards Indy car driver. I've never made so many right-hand turns in all my life. But another thing that I really enjoyed about Hemet when I first came here was the restaurants. The restaurants, we have a wealth of restaurants. So what I would like to see happen is that we have a taste of the town, or a taste of Hemet. And we could involve the Chamber of Commerce in this project, and it would bring business opportunities for all of our community to join together. And even if it's from a food truck to a very expensive, delicious Italian restaurant that has a classic vintage car out front, we could celebrate the differences in our income and also the ethnic cultures within our income. We could have local bands. We could have people who are party planners decorate. We could have event planners set up tables, set up booths. Someone in the audience, you know how one idea sparks another idea? She just mentioned to me she had a wonderful idea to ask the wineries if they would like to, the local wineries, if they would like to participate. But I just think that it would be a wonderful way to bring some income and some unity to the city and to truly celebrate Hemet, because I enjoy living here. So the other thing that I wanted to say is, if Jimmy Buffett ever visited Hemet, he would probably say that there's a 5 o'clock early bird special someplace.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers? All right. We're getting through this pretty quick. Up next is the, okay, zoning ordinance amendment number 18002, minor zone code text revisions. Deanna.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Have another exciting zone text amendment for you. I know you can't wait. As you well know, we've been in the past several years an ongoing effort to update the city's antiquated zoning code and ordinance. And over the past several years, we've done 38 zoning ordinance amendments to bring it up to current best practices and state regulations, et cetera. And in the course of that, sometimes there's things that don't get drafted exactly correctly. We have to go back and fix those edits, and other times we just notice in our daily work at the counter issues that come up or questions, or that we need additional definitions or clarifications. So we try to, once a year, every other year, do kind of a cleanup ordinance, and that's what's before you tonight. So as you can see in the red line version, we've included some new definitions that were not in the code previously, reorganization of different sections just to make it more user-friendly, correcting some of the errors, things that didn't get edited out that should have been, and probably the one more substantive thing is that in the commercial designation we've added a provision by which if somebody's exceeding the height requirement that you could apply for a conditional use permit. And we're thinking in terms of hotels or office buildings or something like that that might be multi-story. But we didn't want to just by right raise the height limit, but rather look at it as a case-by-case basis. So that's probably the one area that is not just a, correction or clarification. But I would be happy to go through all of them in great detail with you or be able to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Deanna. Any questions for staff?
No, but thank you for doing this. It looks great. And like you said on the height of the building, I like that because keeping things nostalgic a little, but then we still have room for growth. It really shows creativity. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good job.
This is a public hearing item, so I will open the public hearing. Is there anybody that wishes to speak in favor or against the proposed minor zoning changes? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council.
Make a motion to introduce, read by title only, and waive further reading of an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 90 zoning of the Hemet Municipal Code and direct staff to file notice of exemption with the county clerk for secret purposes. Ordinance bill, whatever that is, 18-002. Amendment number 18002.
Very good. Is there a second?
A second.
All right, please vote. All right, that passes. Thank you, Deanna. Up next, adoption of the, wow. Getting ahead of us.
Ordinance bill number 18-067, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Hemet amending various sections of Chapter 90 zoning of the Hemet Municipal Code to correct minor text errors, add definitions to land uses, reorganize sections, and modify zone district development standards to ensure consistency with the general plan.
Excuse me, thank you. Okay, now we can move along. Up next, item number 11, adoption of the city Hemet climate action plan. You're back.
Yes, I'd like to do a PowerPoint and try and get through it fairly quickly here. So there's been a couple of state regulations regarding AB 32 and SB 375, which required greenhouse gas reduction through climate action plans. And the targets that were established was 15% below current level emissions by 2020 and 49% below emissions by 2035. So in response to that, WRCOG prepared a sub-regional cap in conjunction with Hemet Hemet and 11 other member cities to address the state legislation and to come up with a comprehensive effort. Hemet participated in this effort with the other cities in WRCOG because they saved the city substantial amount of work and expense in trying to generate all of those air quality studies and reduction measures by ourselves. In addition, when you're doing it at a sub-regional level, then you're more apt to be able to reach those reduction targets, sub-regionally as opposed to city by city. So the CAP determined the existing area-wide growth and emission levels, projected the growth for 2020 and 2035, developed reasonable greenhouse gas reduction measures, and had cities then indicate which measures they felt would meet best for our individual jurisdictions. As I mentioned, the target was a 15% reduction by 2020, and based on the measures in the sub-regional CAP, actually reducing a reduction of 17.6%. But the sub-regional CAP in and of itself was not adopted because WRCOG can't impose that on other people, so each individual jurisdiction had to adopt either the sub-regional CAP or their own. So the benefits of doing it are compliance with state law. One of the big benefits we see locally is CEQA streamlining. So rather than because in the CEQA guidelines you do have to conform to greenhouse gas reduction requirements, and rather than having to do that on a project-by-project basis, which becomes very difficult, if it's done overall regionally or sub-regionally through the CAP, then that's already been accomplished, and as long as they're in compliance with those measures, the CEQA requirements are better able to be streamlined. Also, a lot of the grant applications, if not most of them that we see come forward, require a climate action plan in order to increase the points for grant eligibility. It also, by doing our own, provides an opportunity for more local control or regional economies of scale, as I mentioned, as opposed to, even in the recent legislation that was just signed by the governor, the state is continuing on this path. And the more that we can keep it on a local level with the things that we think meet our needs and objectives and we believe are reasonable, as opposed to being under a state mandate. There's also community benefits and consistency with our general plan policies. A lot of these are sustainability policies that we incorporated in our general plan in terms of walkable neighborhoods and bike paths and clean water and drought-tolerant landscaping and those kinds of things that we've already as a community agreed upon as being desirable. So essentially what the program did was a very, very detailed emissions inventory, established the targets, established the strategies for the greenhouse gas reduction measures, and then as those get adopted, there's monitoring of what's been accomplished, and then likely to be another round after the 2020 milestone. The emission reduction measures fell mostly into transportation and land use, energy, water, waste, and there's some other like land use, mixed use developments. The vast majority of what the subregions able to meet the targets are actually by those state and regional programs like the HERO program, the Cal Green Code building standards, RTAs, transit, RCTC, and a lot of those facilities and funding mechanisms went a long way towards meeting those. So you have the state measures, compliance with those, the regional measures primarily through the RCOG level, and then the local measures. What this shows is just a graph in terms of how the 17% was achieved based on each jurisdiction. So you can see it generally trends with population and what we perceive as population growth. And it's kind of right there in the middle. And most of our savings is from transportation or energy. So there's 3 implementation levels as you look through it. Silver is more encouraging users to implement measures and without mandatory requirements. Gold levels include some requirements but less costly to the jurisdiction and users, kind of a first step up. And platinum levels are more like mandatory requirements and certain reductions. So in the city of Hemet, the ones in the sub-regional cap and in the local cap, most of the reduction measures are at the silver level, so that we're encouraging those reduction efforts. One of the main ones is implementing the energy action plans, which is done under the WELP program. That's correct. That Public Works has been very involved in terms of energy conservation, the streetlight programs, et cetera. Water efficient landscaping, bike infrastructure, bike paths, et cetera. Traffic signal coordination, also traffic light replacement to the LEDs. Waste reduction and recycling efforts. This is done mostly through our contract with CR&R. End of bike trip travel facilities. That's just being able to have bike racks, et cetera, and sometimes other facilities. Increase in the job housing balance to reduce trips to begin with. So we're trying to encourage through our general plan and others more job space here in the city of Hemet. And then increased density and mixed use where appropriate. And we put where appropriate because we primarily address that within our downtown specific plan. Other efforts that have already been accomplished to date is the Community Energy Action Plan, the Municipal Energy Action Plan, the partnership. A couple meetings ago, you were awarded by WRCOG the 2018 Platinum level status for that. ATP grants for bike lanes. Engineering's been successful in getting those underway. Mobile source air pollution reduction committees, our general plan sustainability programs, and then of course the participation in that sub-regional climate action plan. So what are we doing here tonight? So essentially the document that is in your agenda is really a compilation of the sub-regional plan and what we've put on top just to make it more user-friendly so you don't have to pick through it to find out what Hemet is kind of signed up for, responsible for. So part one is local implementation, where we outline how the city is participating in the sub-regional cap, the emission reduction measures, and then the adaptation strategies applicable to the city, and the sustainability policies from the general plan. They're in the general plan, they're just repeated here. Then part two, which is the bulk of the document, incorporates the sub-regional cap, just as it is from WRCOG, so you can see the context, which has the very detailed emissions inventory, other measures, information about implementation, and then adaptation. And we have the 4 appendices. These are all separate documents, but we were trying to compile them all in one place so they're easy for everybody to find. So it's the Hemet community action plans, municipal energy action plans, the vulnerability assessment to reduce climate change vulnerability. A lot of this has to do with, heat and wildfire potential and those kinds of things as we have more warming trends. And then the sub-regional cap monitoring tool. There's also update to our CEQA checklist. So as we're doing environmental assessments, we follow back to this cap. CEQA review and compliance for the document itself. We're basing on the final EIR for the general plan that was adopted. It did, as one of those mitigation measures and implementation measures, direct the city or suggest the city adopt a cap. So we're really following through on that and consistent with those provisions in that original EIR. So in conclusion, we believe that the formal adoption of the local Hemet Climate Action Plan brings the city into conformance with the sub-regional cap and with state law. Numerous federal and state grant programs consider the adoption as a prerequisite to priority funding. The emissions checklist in the CEQA initial study should provide some clarity and assistance to developers so they're not having to start from ground zero to comply with the greenhouse gas emissions requirements. And we believe the cap will promote increased benefits in terms of energy and water conservation measures and enhanced community health and recreational opportunities. So tonight we're recommending that the City Council adopt the Climate Action Plan and the component of the Sub-Regional Action Plan. The Planning Commission did consider this at their last meeting and had unanimous support, and we have not had any comments from the public either at the Planning Commission or prior to your meeting tonight. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, good, because I've got a couple.
Okay.
So I'm going to jump right in real quick. First, this climate action plan, and I know that the state has just set even higher goals as far as going 100% renewable energy and that to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But let me ask you this. How will the state's project that is going to go down Florida Avenue with a raised curve median, which will have huge impacts on traffic patterns and traffic flow, how is that going to impact this climate action plan in reducing or increasing greenhouse gas emissions?
Well, that is a really good and loaded question, and I'll try and answer it as best I can. I think that, and my opinion, because it has not been analyzed by Caltrans in terms of what are the greenhouse gas or emissions requirements. But generally speaking, when you're looking at a concentration at intersections, then you have more CO2 hotspots at those intersections. So the longer you have delays in concentration intersections, that increases. So that would be the potential downside in terms of generating more greenhouse gas emissions. In fairness, though, I would have to say if Caltrans, if they do the project and they commit to what they had said before, which is what our local analysis, traffic analysis indicates, is signal timing is a huge factor in terms of both traffic flow, safety, and being able to reduce those concentrations at the intersections.
You said something in there that has huge impact, and that is if they commit to what they have said. And the funny thing is that they have yet to commit to anything that they have said. So where I'm going with this is that they, through their infinite wisdom, if you will, they think that it's going to reduce, where based on what I've seen by actually driving on the road and sitting at lights for long periods of time, I think this is going to actually have the opposite effect of what our goals are here to meet the state's goals. Those are my 2.5 cents.
And as I mentioned, traffic signal timing and that efficiency is one of those measures that's in the plan.
And have we seen any improvement or changes to traffic signal timing as of yet? Because we brought this to their attention 9 months ago.
The other thing that helps with that is dedicated left turn signals to increase flow.
Sure. Okay. That's all I have for now. Any other questions for staff?
And that was my first question. But the second one, which has to same thing with greenhouse gases, in this sub-regional plan, was the completion of the logistics center up on Highway 60 taken into consideration with the 14,000 truck deliveries that are estimated to come up there, and what that will do to the clean air, since Mr. Benzavi has said he will not have zero-emission trucks?
Okay, so I'm not sure what was anticipated for Moreno Valley, and I'm not sure if Moreno Valley was a participant. So let me just look at that. And to the extent that they were not, then they would have to be doing their own climate action plan on their own. But let me just, there were 11 cities. I'm trying to find the list here. Okay, that may take me a minute. I'll come back to that.
Okay, and on that, and I can only assume, well, in a brief conversation with Air QMD, AQMD, they're looking at the impact now of what the increased number of daily trips would be up there, as are a lot of other entities now that the project is actually, I think it's been installed in the courts again. But other entities are weighing in, and City of Hemet and City of San Jacinto have to weigh in on this one because the air currents from there come out here and stop. So we're going to get the crux of all of the dirty air from all of the increased traffic on Highway 60. So I think as a city, we definitely need to look at that and take a stand and do whatever we can. But also, are you aware, or do you know, because I don't know the answer at all on this, with the building of the new CARB research facility in Riverside, will there be more monitoring out here, do you think, with air quality, and will this climate study then have more teeth because there's a local CARB research?
I don't know the answer to that question. I would hope so. They already have monitoring stations out here, so it's mostly moving their offices and their base of operations. But Riverside is a participant in the sub-regional plan, and Moreno Valley is not. Moreno Valley is doing their own climate action plan.
I kind of figured they would. That's it. I mean, this is a good job, and Court is working on that. But I mean, it just makes sense to have a sub-regional thing, and I agree with the mayor that it would really be nice if Caltrans would weigh in on this one and cooperate and coordinate.
So,
Go ahead.
My question was going to be on the logistics center and that impact. However, this was an incredible comprehensive plan, and you're absolutely right. If we are going to go after any funding, the state and federal governments are making it mandatory for jurisdictions to adopt these plans and make it well known within their application. But although it wasn't necessarily a exciting read, I do want to thank the city clerk for printing out the 300 and some odd pages. I'm a flipper, I'm sorry. I got to write notes. So it's unfortunate that it was so long and big, but old school. But thank you.
I have my
City clerk, for
document
doing
here,
that.
as you know, but I'm the same.
But anyway,
But I think part of one of the reasons why it is so big is that we didn't want these various documents in different places. We wanted to consolidate them all in one place, so anybody that wanted to know what the city was doing or what efforts we had underway, you could go to one document and find all of it.
And how fortunate we are to have an agency like WRCOG to work with us on this and really probably save us a lot of money at best, and then have their expertise along with it. So, good job.
Just a couple questions. The recent action that we took last council meeting when we agreed to go forward with the Edison streetlight acquisition and the ultimate transition to LED. I think I saw in one of your slides that transitioning to LEDs along with traffic signals, streetlights would be.
That's a huge component in terms of the energy category.
So
those
that'll
cities.
help us
Absolutely.
going forward.
Absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about is our recent decision to participate in the CCA. I have a hard time saying that word, community aggregation, anyhow. But it's now called the WCE, which we're now a member agency of, and their objective in going out and seeking cleaner energy sources as an option for our consumers in Hemet. So is it likely that we would receive some benefit credit towards this objective by participating in that?
I believe so, because we are participating in that, and they are enhancing clean energy, green energy. Even at the very, very local level, in terms of all the solar installations that we do, and we do a considerable amount of those in terms of the residential. Whether or not they're funded by HERO, it's really more of that people are implementing more and more of the solar and energy and water conservation. So all of those things, I think, are to the credit to get to those reduction targets.
Thank you. And I really do appreciate the consolidation. It's a nice efficiency effort to be able to go to one-stop shop looking for those things.
Thank you. This is a discussion action item. I do believe I need to open the public hearing on this. Is there anybody that wishes to?
I have two speakers that would like to speak. I have James Rapp, and he'll be followed by Catherine Fletcher.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, council members, city attorney, thank you. I'm glad to see that we are finally talking on the same page. I've been concerned about pollution since Silent Spring. And global warming, well, the head of the UN was cited in an article in The Guardian today about we need to take action by 2020. And here we are, we're discussing this action. And I'm sitting here, and my response and listening is that these are great baby steps. The problem is probably going to become mostly transportation. Electrical generation is going to go green. It's going to go green in probably well before 2045. I don't know how we address the vehicle transportation. I know it can be done. If Elon Musk can make a car that does that, everybody can. So where are we? I think for the city, some suggestions for adoption is I wonder if these are LED lights. I wonder if you could put solar panels on the top of your buildings and generate some electricity. I wonder if you could purchase for vehicles, obviously not law enforcement, because we want them to be able to respond instantly, but things that are, mundane building inspection and things that are hybrid or electrical. I worked for the Port of Los Angeles. I drove a Toyota, what's the little one, the RAV4, that was all electric. The sad thing was it wouldn't go over 35 miles without a charge, but my God, it drove phenomenally. So these are a couple of suggestions, and I want to keep coming back and following up. And I saw somewhere, I think in this plan, about that they're looking for citizens to participate, because the head of the UN is right. This is going to become the biggest issue on this planet in the next 2 or 3 decades, global warming. So thank you for taking action. Please adopt the plan and exceed the plan, and we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Catherine Fletcher. Thank you for letting me talk. Anyways, I do want to support 18-072. I also would like to bring up a couple things that I'd like you guys to maybe think about. One is non-toxic land management. I'd like you guys to remove all the Roundup and the toxic chemicals you guys are using on our parks and any other areas that you guys maintain. Another thing I'd like to do is ask that you guys do a little bit better of a job with trash pickup. I think that's might have to do with maybe having emissions into our water. And another thing you guys might want to think about is idling. When our emergency response vehicles come out to maybe a call in a residential neighborhood, maybe ask them to stop idling when they're out there. The fire department came and responded to a place by my house, and they idled for about an hour and a half there. So idling would probably help reduce some emissions. So those are my suggestions. And again, I would like to also be someone who has an input about anything you guys need help with as far as helping reducing our toxic and our emissions and things like that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay. So seeing no more public comments, I will close that public hearing and bring it back to council.
I just want to make a quick comment. I know that idling is a concern, and that does generate a lot of emissions. Unfortunately, emergency vehicles have so much electronic equipment that they have to keep the engine idling, and the alternator provides the current for their radios and their computers and their emergency lights. Even though they've transitioned to more efficient LED lights, it still sucks a lot of energy, and if they get another call, we want them to not have a dead battery when they go to leave that one. So, good suggestion, but there's a reason why.
Any other comments from council? Okay. Any more comments from staff? All right. What do you want to do?
Yeah, I'll move the staff recommendation that we adopt the Hemet Climate Action Plan and resolution bill number 18-072.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Please vote. All right, that passes unanimous, and maybe this is something that we could forward on to the other state agency and say, hey, you need to comply, or just go away.
That's been part of that argument that, you know, the governor wants, it's his pet thing, vehicle miles traveled in GHG, and the comment that all the trucks can go up, just travel all the way down Florida Avenue, go up to the Vermont Expressway, and you know, go 45 miles out of your way. Yep, that's really reducing greenhouse gases.
Absolutely. Okay. Up next, item 12, city public educational government access and support fees.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. So the item before you right now is the ordinance of the City of Hemet reauthorizing the city's public educational and governmental access and support fee. I don't know how many of you were around back in 2008 when it was, or 2007 when it was first authorized, but this essentially reauthorizes the fee that's collected approximately, or it is 1% of revenues by state authorized cable franchises within the city of Hemet, which helps to offset some of the costs associated with things such as broadcasting, city council meetings, and other public educational programming that happens in the city of Hemet.
Any questions for staff?
And where are we? Where are we with that?
So current
Systems set up either in here or in another facility.
Sure. So I had a meeting this morning with Scott to talk about that. It seems that there's been some ideas that have floated around in terms of whether it's housed here, whether it's housed at City Hall, whether it's housed at a different facility. So that's one of the things that we're going to continue to explore with the staffing that we currently have. We really need to look at what type of programming is sustainable for the future so that we don't burden the general fund with additional costs. So we want to be mindful that the PEG fees do offset some of the operations of that, but there are some of the operational costs that are not covered by PEG, so we want to be mindful of that. So those conversations are ongoing, and so we'll be continuing those conversations.
Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? No. Okay. This is another discussion. Say that again.
Sunset time, and we just need to float around for way too long already.
Yeah. So hopefully we can have answers on when we can get moving forward.
Correct. I don't know if it's included.
We've had some progress with these little cameras, but...
Correct. But we'll want to incorporate, obviously, some of the other things, playback. We also, communications to the community as a result of whether it's updates on weather events that are coming. I know the fire department operates communications methods too, so we'll want to look at how we can enhance those and put those out to the community so that they are aware of the things that are going on in the community. but also too, things such as current events in the community, highlights that we have in the community, utilize that avenue to put that information out there as well.
So what do you think a reasonable amount of time is that we could feasibly accomplish this?
Honestly, with all the priorities that we have, we'll need to incorporate that probably into the CIP at some point. I know that we are having some conversations with that as it is, so that is something that we'll need to discuss some more.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any, I will open the public hearing on this one. Is there any comments from the public on this item? Okay, I will close the public hearing if there are no comments and bring it back to the council. There's no public comments, so we're bringing it back to the council. Any other questions for staff?
Okay.
What do you want to do?
Multitasking. Make a motion to approve the city public educational and governmental access and support fee, introduced, read by title only, and waive further reading of the ordinance reauthorizing the existing public educational and governmental access channel facility support fee.
I'll second that.
All right, please vote. Okay, that passes unanimous. Thank you, sir. Moving along, item. Always get in the way.
Ordinance bill number 18-080, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Hemet, California, reauthorizing the existing public educational and governmental access channel facilities fund.
Thank you. Okay, moving along. Item number 13, City Council reports. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you. Not a whole lot to report. All of us attended the State of Riverside County event. Had a very nice presentation, and it's really nice to see our district supervisor sitting as the chair. Had some lighthearted moments and got some good information conveyed, so that was enjoyable. And just wanted to point out that our emergency services coordinator is hosting training for senior staff tomorrow, commencing at 8 o'clock in the upstairs meeting room of the library, and look forward to them all getting enlightened and get a chance to get out of their office and get motivated on things that probably are not on their to-do list as far as things in their office, but very important things that we all do as staff, and we've got to be role models in our preparation efforts so that citizens understand that we're doing what we need to be doing at our level. And that's all I really have to share right now.
Okay, very quickly, RCTC is tomorrow. RTA, their new routes, I guess, is what it's called, went into existence this last weekend, and there are two routes that affect the Hemet San Jacinto Valley that are new. One is new weekend service to Temecula, and the other is a connecting Hemet San Jacinto banning, something like that. Go on the RTA website and go on routes and schedules, and you'll see all of the new updates. Watermaster was a week or so ago, and although I don't remember what we call it, the rates didn't change, and the percentage of pumpable acre feet did not change. So we're in the sustaining portion of the water management plan that was created because of the Metropolitan Saboba Water Settlement and the water master being created by the court system. So we're in the maintenance, but we're still looking at different ways we can implement changes in efficiency and water usage in the Hemet San Jacinto adjudicated basin. And that's it. Okay, along with the state of the county, several of us attended the Science Under the Stars event for the Western Science Center. It was nice to see our deputy city manager there. And, of course, most of you know that that event is to help support Science Center Academy and the educational system there. I was not able to attend WRCOG today, and I already gave a update last meeting on the Homeless Task Force and the Skate Plaza Task Force. And we reported on the WCE last time as well. So that's all. All right, several of us were able to attend many different events probably today. Did you guys go to different events today? No, and we had to split up a little bit. Did you get to West Valley? Yeah. Okay. But there's many different schools today celebrated Patriots Day, and so it was great to see the children participating, writing poetry, telling stories, even papers from things that they learned in history that happened on 9/11, and then also honoring our first responders. So there were some events last Friday, and then again there were several today. So it's exciting to see the patriotism in our town. Let's see, my RCHCA meeting is not until the 20th, so I will be able to report on that next meeting. And let me see here, going through the calendar. This Friday night at 6:30, we have our Ladder of Excellence. Chief Brown has put on our second annual, so that will be an exciting event. We're looking forward to that. Make sure that's on everybody's calendar. At the Salvation Army, yep, 6:30. And then also Savova's Powwow is this weekend. Authentic Native American food, dancing, singing, and it's really amazing. If no one has ever gone, I highly suggest it. So the admission is free, but you just want to take money to buy those Indian tacos. They're to die for. They kind of make them, dinner and dessert, so you can get one of each. It's my favorite time of the year. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I, too, attended a lot of the events that were mentioned, the Western Science Center fundraiser, the events today for the 9/11 Patriots Day. This morning, it started at Dartmouth Middle School, 7:30 at Dartmouth. They did a great job. The Dartmouth Choir sang a whole medley of Patriot songs. The band played the national anthem. They did a great job, and then it ended with a flyover, and then a second flyover with the missing man formation. So that was very awesome to be there. And one of the other things that kind of touched my heart for being there was on Saturday, I picked up my son who has been in Iraq for the last 9 months. And so it was great to have him home. So my weekend was busy with him, but I took him with me. Actually took both my boys, who one is still active duty and then the other one is a veteran. Took them both this morning, so it was nice to have them both there for both the events at Dartmouth, and then we immediately followed up with River Springs. One of the nice things that Carly didn't mention at River Springs was I think it was the second grade or the fourth grade class gave the first responders letters, a whole bunch of letters that they had written to them. So I think that was pretty special. So the amount of patriotism in our valley is very prevalent. So on Monday, I did go to the Riverside Conservation Authority meeting. One of the biggest items that we talked about and then voted on was getting some conservation credits. The Crestmore Redevelopment LLC was able to bring forth their project to redevelop the old Riverside cement plant, which is actually in the city of Jurupa Valley. So there was some testimony that was given from some long-term residents there, and they're going to be able to get that cleaned up and move forward with redevelopment of that with the conservation credits through RCA. So that was the biggest item for RCA, and then the species of the month is the American bittern, which is a very territorial bird, looks kind of like a crane, and that presentation was short, but if you're interested, you can look up the American bittern, which is the species of the month. With that, Planning Commission, Deanna gave us the updates that came out of Planning Commission, which was the minor zoning amendments, and then the last one that she just brought forth was the climate action plan. So that's all I have. Ad hoc committee reports. Master annexation, there's nothing out of that. Florida Avenue, we just spoke about that with this climate action plan, so there is still more to come. We're still working on that. And lastly, the CDBG, is that now complete? So we can, it needs to still come back.
Well, yeah, because you have to approve what we recommend.
Okay. Is that going to be at the next meeting? Do you? And I think you guys already gave a report out of that on at the last council meeting.
They have very stringent times, so it should be back.
Okay, perfect. All right, and then lastly, city manager report. Nothing to report. Okay. Future agenda items?
Oh, please.
Are we going to tackle some of these?
Yes.
Well, wouldn't it be nice to, knock some of those off? And then I've got two more.
Plenty more?
The HEAP, HEAP, we need to bring that to the next agenda so that we can discuss whether or not, because I think there's portions of that can be extremely beneficial with our homeless issue in the valley, with not only the nonprofits, but also I think there's some programs maybe we can pull out of that that the city can assist with. So if we can have that back on. And also, this is probably something that should go to Traffic Commission first, but the traffic at River Springs School morning and afternoon is an absolute disaster. Today there were cars literally back to back, both lanes from Palm to Gilbert, and nobody was moving, and all they were doing was honking their horns and hollering at each other, and traffic wasn't going anywhere because there was two cars parked trying to turn into the school. So something has to be done about the traffic over there before either a child gets hurt or we have a major meltdown with people ramming their cars into each other.
And talk with high school too.
Yes. Well, schools are schools. They're just nasty stuff, but there's no signage at River Springs. And that's a driving school, even though, it's a driving school. People go in there. So maybe alternatives, maybe they could use the Salvation Army parking lot to park in and walk their kids over there. Just thinking, but I think something needs to be done about that.
Any other? No?
No, we need to have that declaration. It's supposed to be on this agenda.
Council, the city manager's given me direction to go ahead and prepare that. That will be on your next agenda.
Thanks. All right. With that, we will recess back into closed session. Thank you.